In this video, I'm going to show how to replace the swing arm bearings. So first step, I'll show you why to do that. So in this case, this is a reasonably worn but still functional bearing. These are needle bearings inside of here. And you can see those in there. Then they rotate around this bushing or piece here. Now, important to keep in mind, although there's a bolt that goes through there, the swing arm is not supposed to rotate on the bolt. This is supposed to be the rotating assembly. But you look on this side, you can see it's kind of rusty. You can even see the points at which those needle bearings rested. And inside there, it's rusty, and those needle bearings are no longer even in alignment. So that was pretty close to total failure there, so we'll go ahead and replace it. Now, what you're going to need to do this, you got to get the rear wheel off. If you got a KTM Husqvarna gas of this type, a 30 millimeter socket like that or wrench will get that rear axle nut off. And then once you got the wheel off, then you can go ahead and use a 13 millimeter socket to or wrench rather, to get this nut off, because this brake lever has to be removed in order to access the linkage bolt here, okay? In order to get the linkage off here, so the knuckle and the linkage here, those are all 19 millimeter nuts, okay? Now, most of those are locked in on one side. You can see right there, you don't need to hold that side because it's fixed in place there. So just one 19 millimeter socket will get that off. However, this one here has a bolt that goes through with a nut on the other side, so you need a socket and a wrench, so a wrench to hold the opposite side, okay? And once you have that swing arm off, then the next step is going to be to remove these seals here. So the seals, what they look like when they're new, they look like that. So you got to find a way to kind of get around that, kind of pry it out. So some combination of a pick and a screwdriver is what is typically needed to get those out. And we'll go ahead and remove those, and then we'll look at the next step in terms of getting the bearings out of there and replaced. All right, so there's a few different ways to get these seals out. In general, I'd say just avoid the notion that you're going to get these out without wrecking them, because if you're trying to save them, you're probably going to spend a lot more time and potentially wreck other things. But the idea, you don't want to mar up this aluminum housing here of the swing arm, because that that is potentially damageable with the wrong actions. And sometimes a little pick can get in there to separate between the seal and the housing. These ones are a little more challenging because there is a little bit of metal within the swing arm housing that abuts the back of the seal. So you can't just go straight in and pry on it as easily as you can on some other models. But in any case, what I found is the easiest way to do that is to try to find the area where that seal meets the edge of the swing arm housing, just kind of like right in here. Then you push and pry at the same time, okay? All right, so why that's a little more challenging in this situation to get those seals out is because there is this area here. You can see there's the diameter kind of comes in a little bit from where that outer portion of the seal rides. So when you're trying to go in there and pry, what you're trying to do is get between that seal and that little lip there, okay? Also important to keep in mind that that lip is there when you're pushing out those bearings. All right, so how I'm going to go about doing that. And there is an official tool for this. I think Motion Pro sells one, a few others. But that said, you don't necessarily need all that. So basically, find a socket that is a little bit smaller than the diameter of the bearing, okay? So here's one of the new bearings. I just matched that up and found it a little bit smaller, and then that is going to go right in here and push on that bearing, okay? Then you need another socket, or something circular and round. Sockets are just great because they have increasing diameters, and if you have a full set of them, you got pretty much everything you need. But I mean, that's effectively what the bearing kits that are universal come with. They just come with a bunch of different things like this. But that just goes on the other end like this to receive that bearing. So it has to be, the inner portion here has to be big enough that the bearing will fit inside of there without difficulty, like that, okay? So then you can use, I've seen this a few different ways. I've seen people put a bolt that goes all the way through with some washers and as you tighten that bolt, it draws the bearing out. I'm going to end up using a C-clamp, kind of like that. So that'll go on there to push on that socket and push those bearings out. All right, so let's see what that's like now. All right, so now with that in place, you can see kind of what I had in mind. So you got the bigger outer socket to receive that bearing, and then the littler one there to push on the bearing, a little smaller than the diameter of it. And important to note that that socket is placed so it's not pushing on that inner lip of the swing arm. So that's kind of an important piece there, because you don't want to wreck that. Now, the housing of the swing arm is aluminum, and those the races and center of the bearing are steel. So aluminum will expand pretty quick with some heat. So if you need to, if you're having a little bit of difficulty, place just a pinch of heat on the outer portion of that swing arm, and that might ease the removal. All right, now that we have those bearings out, you can see what that inner surface actually looks like. There's that little lip I was referring to, right there. And we'll go ahead and get the inner surface all nice and cleaned up. Sometimes you might have to use a little bit of wire brush. In this case, not too bad. I'll use just a little paper towel and some WD-40. I like WD-40 because it's a good solvent to clean out that old grease, but also will provide a little lubricant to push those new bearings and make that just a little bit easier. Now those bearings, when you push them in, are going to be flush with that surface there. So each side, the inner one's going to be flush here, and then the other one's going to be flush on the outer lip there, because those seals ride all on that seat. So they go all the way into that little lip there, or that seat there, okay? So next step, get it cleaned up, and then we'll push our new bearings in more gently than we took the first ones out. All right, so now we're all ready for installation of the new bearings. And what I chose to get this is from Tusk, which is purchased from Rocky Mountain ATV. Reasonably priced, I mean really good price actually, and pretty reasonable quality. And this is what it comes with. It's really everything you need, including these shims, which I didn't mention before. Those go, and pay attention to how things come apart on your bike, but those go between that little inner lip and the seal, okay? So they're on the back side of that seal on the outer portion of the swing arm. So again, pay attention how your kit comes apart, but that's where I found mine. In any case, the other thing to notice too is these bearings are slightly different than the original. The original ones, those needle bearings can actually just fall out of there when you take this out from the inner portion. These are actually attached in there, which is really nice, because then you don't have to worry about those needle bearings falling out as you go to press that into place. Now, to press it into place, you can use the same apparatus that you used to take it apart, but what I find just a little bit better is a washer for one side like that to help keep that from going through, and then a slightly larger socket. So the last socket I used, I think, was 19 or 20 millimeters. This one's 22. The reason I chose a little bit bigger one is it's nice because it'll stop when it gets to that inner lip. It'll keep you from going past flush with the bearing, because if you push it in too far, then you got to come back a little bit. In any case, so what I found is 22 or 23 millimeter would probably work just fine. So get all that cleaned up, get a nice clean area, have some nice waterproof grease to get all those bearings greased up with. I like a little bit of a rubber mallet to just get that bearing seated, and then you can go ahead and press it in with the same way that we took it out effectively. Okay? So as you're installing those bearings, these ones didn't seat real well with the rubber mallet like some do. It still remained non-engaged. So in any case, when you do go to really start pressing on that with a C-clamp or whatever you're going to use, make sure that that bearing is in fact flush. It's being pushed straight in and not on an angle. That's kind of the critical components, okay? All right, so now those bearings are installed and they're flush with that seat in there. And the next step is going to be, I'm going to apply just a little bit of grease to the bearings, and then I will use a rubber mallet to place those seals in place. But again, remember to pay attention to those shims. And then after I get everything back together with the seals in there, I'll add more grease, and then I'll put the inner bushing and outer bushings in place, okay? All right, so this kit comes with two different seals. One's a small rubber seal like that. The other one is the one that the bike utilizes, which is this one with the outer portion. These small rubber seals here, these are pretty easy to just push in with your hands, but the ones that I have here with the outer metal collar, those are usually best to kind of tap in with a rubber mallet. Big component to that is just make sure it's not offset when you start pounding on it. Try to have it as even as possible. That way it kind of goes in straight. And then try to distribute the force so you don't wreck that. So just gentle tapping with the rubber mallet. All right, so this side's all reinstalled, greased, and ready to go. I do want to just show, make sure you put those seals in the correct way. So this part where it's a little more open is the inner portion, and then the part where it's kind of flush or all sealed up, that's the outer portion, okay? In any case, get that all back together. In terms of getting your bike back together, swing arm nut, 74 foot-pounds. Most of the linkage down here is going to be 45 foot-pounds. So all of these nuts there, 45 foot-pounds. Rear axle spindle, that's 59 foot-pounds. Okay, so that should get you back together, get you back riding again. Thanks for checking out the video. Let me know if there's questions, comments. Really appreciate you checking it out.